when we talk about historical usage, what we're talking about is historical usage of these plants in the West. And so, you know, one thing that some people that are trained in Chinese medicine perhaps are not so familiar with is that there's actually, you know, sort of, it's a little bit complicated because there's not just one system of Western herbal medicine. In fact, there's many, many systems, and some of them originally developed in Europe and others developed in the U.S. or other places. Some of the ones that developed in the U.S., like, say, physiomedical medicine or the eclectic system, developed by European Americans. So they had, you know, they were drawing from the European tradition. But then there's, you know, there's more native traditions, like the Native American tradition, which is certainly far different from the European tradition. And the four humor system, which is developed originally in the Greek system. And so understanding, you know, when you look at historical usage of plants, and you're looking at whatever information you can get your hands on, it can be a little bit complicated because you have to have at least familiarity with the lens that the author was using when they wrote about the plants. Because if you read something from, say, Culpeper, who is a very famous English herbalist, he was also an astrologer. And he used this four humor system, which is a Galenic system. And so when you read his material, he's got all this sort of mix and what sounds sort of like mix and match between astrology and whether it's how it's treating the four humors and etc. And if you don't know what the basis of those systems are, it's kind of hard to understand what he's talking about. So although that adds a bit of complexity to the study of some of these plants, on the other hand, it also can be quite helpful because you can, you know, you may have one plant that you have several different viewpoints from different historical writers, and that can maybe give you some insight into sort of what I might call the essence of the usage of that plant. Because there's usually a thread, if you will, that you can connect sort of dots between the different systems that have talked about the same plant. And that thread, those dots that connect that that plant through those different systems, is quite likely the place where it's good to start at, because sort of everyone agrees on some particular usage or understanding of that plant. And B, it also sort of weeds out any particular author's bias about what, you know, how to use that plant. You know, I mean, I think it's important to remember that sometimes people write about something because they had a great experience with it. Whether it was repeatable or not doesn't really necessarily come into play. They used it once or twice, they had a great result, and that becomes, in their mind at least, the way that they use that plant. And even if they didn't have good results later on, it still sort of settles in their head as this is the way to do that. And I think we're all, as writers, guilty of that to some extent or another. But that sort of gets weeded out when you are looking at these different systems.